The great thing about the KISS Army now is that the KISS Army is not run by us. We don't get money from anybody. It's not that kind of fan club. The best kind of army is a volunteer army. When people say, I want to be in the army, I want to fight for what I believe in. KISS Army is a volunteer army. Everybody is there because they want to be there, not because we're saying, join and we'll give you a t-shirt or send us $10.
And we don't give anything for it.
And we won't give you anything for it but a little card. KISS Army is a volunteer army, and that's the best kind.
Revenge was the 16th studio album from American rock band KISS, marking a triumphant return to their hard-hitting roots. Released in 1992, this powerhouse record showcased the band's rejuvenated energy with standout tracks like Unholy and Domino. Featuring the blistering guitar work of Bruce Kulick and Eric Singer's thunderous drumming, Revenge blended raw power with polished production. The album also pays tribute to late drummer Eric Carr with the heartfelt ballad Carr Jam 1981. With its mix of gritty rock anthems and melodic hooks, Revenge solidified KISS's legacy as rock legends, thrilling fans both old and new. Here follows a compilation of interviews the band did in the Scandinavian countries of Sweden and Finland in the spring of 1992 to promote the release of the album.
Högoktaniga reportage och heta intervjuer från hårdrockens brutala och underbara värld. Idag har vi en exklusiv intervju med de revanschsugna KISS.
Hi, this is Paul Stanley.
This is Bruce Kulick. We're KISS.
That's right. And if you don't watch Diesel, we'll kick your butt.
There's been some accusations that you might have lost direction in your music during the late 80s. Do you think so yourself? Or?
We didn't turn into a jazz rock band. We didn't turn into a concept band. What may have happened at the worst is that we weren't as focused. It's kind of like if the lens on the camera, it's clear enough to see things, but it's not sharp. Maybe we weren't quite as sharp, but that's not that strange. It would be strange for an album by a band that was on its second album or third album. But after 17 albums, you work twice as hard to make something great.
Was the producer Bob Ezrin some help for you to rediscover the way you should focus on this album?
Yeah, absolutely. By the time we were getting ready to start the album, we were very clear on who we are and what we wanted to do. The great thing with Bob was that he'd worked with us before and did a really fine album with us, Destroyer. He also did an album with us that was, I don't know how you say it, crap, you know, Hot Air, you know, which is The Elder.
About The Elder.
Yeah. Once we made sure that he was the Bob Ezrin that did Destroyer and not the Bob Ezrin that did The Elder, we were ready to work. And we all fit together very, very well. I mean, Bruce can tell you what it was like in the studio.
Yeah, the chemistry working with him was great, but it's not always that it was so much fun, especially for myself. I mean, he tortured me, which I think was fair to say was a way of making me play great.
The lineup of KISS in 1992 features a new drummer, Eric Singer. Was he a natural choice since he's worked with you in this club tour you did a couple of years ago?
He was really a natural choice because of what he did on Revenge. When he played with me on a solo club tour, he was phenomenal. I mean, a great, great showman. But even more important than that, and being a great drummer, he was totally committed. He takes what he does very, very seriously. But that's not the same as playing with KISS. And when we went in the studio and worked on Revenge, his input and his commitment to doing a great album was so strong, even though he was not a member of the band, that when Eric Carr passed away, it was very obvious to us that in some way fate works things out so that with something terrible happening, we suddenly saw some light.
Get ready to dance, everybody, yeah!
Rock Commander is a celebration of rock and metal culture. Manage your own rock bands, connect with a passionate community, and experience exclusive collaborations with real bands like American Chaos and Adam and the Metal Hawks.
You mentioned Eric Carr. You've gained one Eric and lost one Eric. How comfortable are you to speak about Eric's death?
Very comfortable. Very comfortable. You know, it's not something that we want to get overly morose, sad about. It's a tragedy, and Eric was a wonderful guy.
Well, we all hoped, of course, that he would beat this thing, you know. Obviously, we were all really shocked and felt it was a nightmare once we found out it was cancer, and especially of the heart. That's something that not many people, if anyone, really beats, because it can spread so easily through the body. But, you know, we were always supportive to him. We wanted him to always think of the band as being there for him, at the same time that his health should be the most important thing, and not worry about the fact that we already started to work on a record, and this is what we had to do, wanted to do.
And when he was up to it, he shot the video for God Gave Rock and Roll. But amazingly enough, it was probably 5 weeks later, something like that, he was dead.
Do you consider yourself now that you were a band that lived the rock and roll excesses to the fullest in the 70s?
Do I consider us a band that lived the rock? Yeah, you might say that. But it depends on what you consider the excesses. Drugs have never interested this band, or at least it's never interested the people who remain in the band. It's ultimately screwed up and either killed physically or creatively anybody who's fooled around with them. But in terms of sex and partying and having a great time, I've always been a believer in it, and we've certainly lived it.
Are you inspired by artists and bands of today?
Inspired, if inspired means pushed to be better, or pushed in terms of hearing something that I would, you know, want to do, no. No, not at all. I think we just went to some stores and we picked up CDs, you know. Some of the greatest stuff, and stuff that's still influencing everybody, although it's through different generations. You pick up Robert Johnson, pick up Howlin' Wolf, and from there you can work your way to Led Zeppelin. And from Led Zeppelin you can work your way a little further to some of the bands, and it, you know, generation after generation. But what's being done today, personally, I'd rather go to the source.
What are your plans for the next coming year or so?
We go back to Los Angeles and rehearse the Revenge tour, which will be the biggest show we've done. We'll be doing about 30 songs, and the plan is to finish here.
February?
Yeah.
So we'll tour America first with the Revenge tour, and then we might go to Japan in January, and then come to Europe in February.
And it's definitely worth the wait. Yeah. If Revenge was worth waiting for, this tour is definitely worth waiting for. We won't let you down.
We'll be back.
Pang, boom, crash. Kiss har gjort det igen för 51:e gången. Fast nu mycket bättre än på länge faktiskt. På 70-talet var det smink, skräck och extrem utstyrsel som gällde för Kiss. 1983 lät han sminket rinna av, men fortsatte enträget med att göra lättsmält hårdrock. Revenge heter nya plattan, och första singeln de släppt från den är då Unholy, som ni hörde här. På nyttfödda är de i läderrockar, en skarpare attityd och med en ny trummis sen Eric Carr dog i november 91. Eric Singer heter den nya trummisen. Men jag träffade Paul Stanley och Bruce Kulick när de var här i Sverige förra veckan på ett kort besök. Och de är mäkta stolta över nya plattan, framsprungen ur nyvunnen energi och hårt arbete.
We had to make sure that our finest moments were not behind us
And if it meant working twice as hard, then you have to work twice as hard. But you have to live up to your tradition and to your best. It's not enough to put out very good albums and have people talk about these good albums, but say, oh, I remember Destroyer or Love Gun was so great. Not when you know that you have it in you to make a great album. I think we had to realize that we had worked hard on all the albums we did and we were proud of them, but we suddenly realized we had this renewed energy, and if we worked twice as hard, we could make an album that was maybe twice as good. If you get caught up in that thing of, oh, the good old days, that means that today stinks or it's not good enough. We don't want to talk about the good old days.
Nej, för Kiss är det bara nuet som gäller. Trots att han verkar ha hittat tillbaka till sin gamla goda form. Tung rock'n'roll med en massa humor.
You should take what you do seriously, but it doesn't mean that you can't yourself see humor in things. We've certainly done things in the past where there was a bit of being cheeky, or tongue-in-cheek, and sometimes people don't get it, and that's kind of funny. I remember there was a film in America called the Decline of the Western Civilization, and it was about rock and roll. And I was interviewed in bed with 4 naked blondes or something, and I kind of did it. I really did it as a joke. It was like the typical rock star kind of thing that I think is so funny. And you see it in videos, and you see these guys, with all the strippers around them, and they're trying to show everybody how romantic and macho and these big lovers. So I did this absurd interview in bed, and some people thought, what an idiot. What an idiot this guy is. He's got to show everybody he's got girls. There's nothing sadder than somebody who has to tell you that they get laid. Hopefully we all do.
Ja, Kiss driver alltså med hela rockmyten och Paul Stanley med sig själv som den stora älskaren. Men det betyder ju inte att de inte tar sin musik på allvar, för det gör de. Och på den nya plattan har de återigen tagit hjälp av producenten Bob Ezrin som var med att skapa succéalbumet Destroyer från 1976 och den mindre lyckade The Elder som kom 1981. Bob Ezrin, det är en man med pondus och stort musikaliskt kunnande som plockar fram de bästa sidorna hos Kiss.
Bob's very talented. Comes from a very musical background. He plays keyboards very well and knows how to help arrange songs, and he helps bands if your songs need some work. He's very helpful. As you noticed, he's a co-writer on some of the material. But I think it was important for him to kind of make sure that we never compromised on any level, and that meant we did guitars over and over again. We certainly kept improving certain things with arrangements of the songs. Lyrics, some were done right up to the end, right before when we mixed the record. So we never presumed just because we recorded it, well, that was a keeper. We'd always look again, and it was nice to have that kind of somebody objective outside the band. But I think this was certainly for the band the most critical we've ever been of ourselves, and to have somebody like Bob to bounce it off of was a real strength for this record.
Ett kompromisslöst förhållande som verkar fungera enligt gitarristen Bruce Kulick. Nästa år firar Kiss 20-årsjubileum. Kvar från originalet finns ju bara basisten Gene Simmons, så gitarristen och sångaren Paul Stanley. Men med så många års erfarenhet måste de ju kunna ge råd till andra som vill göra en långlivad karriär. Men det enda råd Paul kan ge är att man alltid måste vara sig själv och lyssna till sin innersta vilja. Med det kan man nå långt.
I think first of all, don't listen to anybody else. If you really believe what you're doing is right, then you do that. Because later, if it doesn't work out, at least you'll be able to say it was your fault. If you listen to somebody else and they're wrong, then you have to beat your head against the wall for changing your mind. So I think the most important thing always is to follow your heart and your gut instinct. So I think the best advice is almost no advice. Advice didn't get us where we are. The best advice is listen to yourself.
Kiss, I just wanna. Och vad påstår nu vill i den här låten kan man tolka som man vill. Det låter som en sak, en speciell sak, men visar sig vara en annan när han sjunger hela ordet ut. Nya Kiss blir det i Bang på torsdag kväll.
What have been the highlights of this band and the worst moments? I bet there are a lot of them, but...
Lots of highlights, you know. I think highlights are almost every day. You know, people sometimes think, so 20 years ago when the highlights, or 10 years ago, and there's loads of highlights. I don't think there's been any bad points to the band. The only bad point, I think, was probably Eric Carr's illness and his death. Other than that, that's a tragedy. Other than that, there are no bad points. When there are bad times, you fix them. If there are bad people, you throw them out.
Rid of them.
So there's never been, you know, if something is bad, you fix it. This means enough to us that we do that.
How about you? Your best moment
Best
in
moment?
this band?
There have been a lot of them, but I remember when we were first signed to this new record company that didn't have a name yet, the record company president came in and he said, I really like this band and I'll sign them, but are you sure about the makeup? He wasn't sure we should wear the makeup. We were signed to Casablanca Records, the first record company, and they never saw the picture of the band. They just heard the music. And then when he saw us, he couldn't believe we wore makeup. So probably a good relief, a good feeling was that we could do it our way and wear the makeup, even though somebody else didn't believe in it. And a bad moment?
Silent Rage.
Probably the snowstorm that hit us when we were in Helsinki. I don't know.
That's what Bon Jovi told us. What's wrong with the Finnish weather?
The Finnish weather was wonderful, but there was we were in our hotel and there was snow like 5 feet
it's
high.
unbelievable. Unbelievable. The funny thing is, when you're used to that kind of weather, we're looking out the windows like we're seeing a blizzard like we've never seen before, and across the street there are people building another building. You know, they're outside working, and as though it's, you know,
summer.
Everything's fine and we're outside working.
To me, it looked like being on the moon, but beautiful. Where are we now? We're celebrating the release of our new album, Revenge, which people seem to like an awful lot, even critics.
How did you find the title? Did you discuss it a lot? Or?
Paul actually thought of the title.
It's just a good title. You know, it says, you know, it is our revenge. If anyone thought we couldn't do a great album, if anybody thought that we were living on the past, if the best was behind us, then you put out a great album, and that's Revenge. We can look at each other and say, we are Kiss.
That's good.
That's true.
As opposed to
we
Youngbloods.
We are not Kiss. We're smarter in that we've done, you know, we've worked a lot and we're better musicians. But I think we are in the shadow sometimes of what we've done in the past. So in doing Revenge, it was very important that we rise to be as great as some people think we were. Some people think we're great now, but there are other people who say, oh, they did great stuff 10 years ago, you know, 15 years ago. So in the studio this time, I think we compete with ourselves, and we were very much determined to outdo ourselves, to do a better record than we've done in a long time. Not because the other ones we didn't try, but because now we were ready to go that extra mile, you know, work a little harder, push ourselves to make sure that this was a classic Kiss album.
How about your atmosphere? Are you a big family, or is there somebody who's the boss in the studio, maybe the producer, who chooses like the final mix or something?
Everybody has a mouth, and
you vote and stuff like that?
Not voting so much, more passion. The most important thing that winds up is who feels strongest about something. And everybody has enough respect for themselves, but for the other people to realize that when somebody's really crazy about something and if you keep insisting, and if you're not sure about your point of view, then then they must feel something that you don't see. I think a lot of times, nobody is ever completely happy about something. There's always an area where you say, well, I'm not so sure about this, but if you really like it, then I trust your instinct. You have to trust other people's instincts if you're in the same family.
Like I heard that you had a lot of material to choose from, so that must have been difficult.
It wasn't, it's only difficult for the person who writes it, because you can come in with a song and it just gets voted no, and that's tough. You know, you can play a song for somebody afterwards. You know, like last night I was playing a song for somebody and he said to me, why isn't that on Revenge? I said, because everybody said no. So you can sometimes come in with songs that you think are great, but ultimately I think everybody together can make are better judges than one person. And for whatever reason, if you like something but everybody else thinks no, they're probably right.
Did you ever consider making it a double album or something?
No.
No.
Out of the question.
No, it's not out of the question. We've done stuff like that before. And to do that now would be to maybe try to make some sort of point. And there is no point except trying to put the best songs you've got at that time on the record. And there were 10 or 11 better songs than there were other songs. But we could have put out a double album and had, you know, some okay songs and some very good songs.
How about your favorite song of your own songs?
Out of all the albums?
All the
just...
albums, all the songs you've ever recorded? Or is it impossible to say?
That's tough. Out of all the songs we've ever recorded, what's the favorite Kiss song, or the song we wrote ourselves, or what?
It started such a simple question.
Or,
Yeah,
okay,
it
go ahead.
started
Or a
very
song that we
simple.
wrote that's slow, or
slow or
a slow
quick
song
one?
that fades.
Do you mean the guy who was in the studio drinking coffee? Do you
Was
mean
it?
on that album?
You mean... Okay, go ahead, you answer it. I'll watch.
What's your favorite song that you've ever written?
You first, wise guy.
Love Gun. It's very easy. What's your favorite song that you've written?
What is my favorite song that I've ever written, but that I was in there, but that I
A Kiss
didn't
song
like?
or
a Kiss
an-
song?
or-
Yeah, the band is called
cover.
Kiss, right?
Deuce.
Okay, thank
Why didn't you ask me that question? I could have answered that.
Well, I've sort of tried to, you know, make it more complicated.
I'm here like this. A song that may have meaning, or a song that could be slow, or... Okay.
How about touring? Many people complain about touring. They hate it because you can't sleep and...
It's great. It's tough. It's not easy. Anybody who tells you that life on the road is, oh, it's easy, they're lying to you. Or, you know, I mean, it's tough, but it's great. Things don't have to be easy to be good, you know. Making Revenge was not easy, but it was great. When we go on tour, it's work. You go out for 2.5 hours every night and sweat your ass off and, you know, work real hard, but it feels great and it feels really good. When we tour, we get a chance each night to get together with local friends. Whether it's in a city or a new country, we get a chance to spend the evening with the local, you know, family. And we try to make sure that we give them what they've been waiting for.
Do you have still Kiss Army and very loyal fans all over the world? You meet the same people every time?
The Kiss Army exists. It's become a Kiss Nation. They number, who knows, in the many hundreds of thousands, but we don't really know how many there are. They're really not connected with us. They exist totally on their own. They have Kiss conventions. They have Kiss tribute bands. They publish Kiss fan magazines, all on their own. And every country that you can think of is represented. And when there's a Kiss convention, like the one that we went to recently in London, you have every nationality in there, and the borders and the differences in culture and language have nothing to do with it. They all still feel like they belong to the same family.
Great thing about the Kiss Army, the great thing about the Kiss Army now is that the Kiss Army is not run by us. we don't get money from anybody. It's not that kind of fan club. The best kind of army is a volunteer army. When people say, I want to be in the army, I want to fight for what I believe in. KISS Army is a volunteer army. Everybody is there because they want to be there, not because we're saying join and we'll give you a t-shirt or send us $10.
And we don't give anything for it.
And we won't give you anything for it but a little card. KISS Army is a volunteer army, and that's the best kind.
How about the audiences in the world? Where's the best audience? Many people say that in Europe,
Finland.
maybe heavy metal.
Probably
audience.
Oulu was the best audience
Yeah,
too.
I've heard about that.
I love to
You
play
guys
with
freezing
gloves
down
on.
there, yeah.
It's always nice to play with a hat and gloves inside.
The coldest place we ever played was in Oulu. It was a
Still?
snowstorm
And it's
that,
been 4
that
years?
I ever remember.
Yeah.
4 years? No, we were there many years.
No, but
not-
I heard this for the first time 4 years ago.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and after that, you had never been in a colder place?
Never any
Oh,
colder.
gosh.
We played indoors, and it was freezing outside, but indoors it was a hockey rink where there was still ice on the floor.
Yeah, they just cover it.
And he
They
had
don't
to
wanna
play with
melt it.
gloves on, and when you sang, smoke came out of your mouth.
And you're going like this, you're playing your...
Unbelievable.
Out of sync.
Unbelievable. And you could see the smoke rise from people just from the sweat.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why do you?
You know, you look out into the audience and there's just steam coming off from the people. And that was absolutely the coldest place we've ever played. And we played in Alaska,
Oh,
outdoors. But it was, I think,
Hotter.
in the spring, much hotter.
Oh, no. Well, we
But it
gotta
was
do something
cool.
about it. It was cool.
And back at the hotel, it was warm.
How about the changes in your lineup? How much has it affected your sound, or
It doesn't.
it doesn't?
Because it's all a continuation. Sometimes a member has changed, but the truth is that it was to continue the sound. The band today sounds very much like the band that started, because nobody who has ever come in is trying to take us into a different direction. It's like an army. Somebody comes in to fight the same battle as the soldier that's no longer there. So we never wanted to make any changes. But when someone in the band is showing disrespect for the audience, those people, and when someone in the band is not doing their job, or when they're doing drugs or drinking and compromising the band, then they must go. We would like the band to stay the same people. Bruce has been playing guitar now in the band 7 years, I think, and there's no reason he won't continue. Eric Carr was in the band for 11 years. It was not our choice. You know, it would never have happened, obviously, had we wanted it the way, had it been the way we wanted. But sometimes, in Eric's case, we had no choice because we lost somebody who meant a lot to us. But most of the other guys didn't deserve to be in the band. And if you don't deserve to be in the band, it's because you don't deserve the fans. And the fans are so giving. And if you show them disrespect, then you must leave.
Yeah, this seems to be a sort of a sad year. I was just at the funeral of Jeff Porcaro on Monday, and it's kind of a sad situation.
Well,
So
death is
unfair.
always sad. And it's more sad to people who know somebody well. And in the case of Eric, I think fans understood how much he cared about them. And Eric was the most devoted person to his fans. And we knew him on another level. That makes it that much more tragic.
How have you changed during these years? Are you still the same guys who formed this band?
I'm Gene now and he's Paul.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. We have to change their titles.
How have we changed? I think you go through periods where you think you know all the answers, and the truth is you don't, and you never really do. And if you're ever really honest enough with yourself, you realize that you're only a piece of the puzzle, no matter how big you think that piece may be, and that without everybody else, the whole picture isn't clear. And I'm sure there were times that went by when I thought I was the king and he was nothing. I'm sure there were times when he thought he was the king and I was nothing.
Yes, Paul?
And The truth is,
I am the king and he is nothing.
that is the truth. And every time you, whether it's tragic or whether it happens because it's a natural order of events, when you get a new member that comes into the band,
Gotcha.
the truth is when you get a new member in the band, it makes you look at things a little differently, and all of a sudden somebody new comes in the band and says something, and you say, why didn't I think of that? For instance, Eric Singer, our new drummer, came in when we were recording the album, and he said something about the show. He said, why don't you do this? And we looked at each other and we went, yeah, why don't we do that? So a great idea can come from anywhere, and you have to realize that everybody's important to the whole.
How about the music scene here in LA? Well, you being around for so long and many other bands proves that there isn't much new talent, or am I wrong?
Well, there is always new talent. Maybe it seems like there isn't new talent because talent that isn't great doesn't last. There is always continually new groups. If you go to Tower Records, you can see, if you look at the new albums, there's hundreds. There's 150 albums at any given time, new releases. But when people say, oh, the older bands are still around because there's no new bands, there's many new bands. They're not good enough to stand the test of time. The good ones remain. There are always, every year there may be one or two bands that we will see for 10 or 15 years. But for that band, there's probably 1,000 bands that are not worth the tape.
The most important thing in your lives and your dreams?
Freedom. Freedom's what it's all about, you know. Everything I think that we initially got into this for was so that we didn't have to play the game, the corporate game. We didn't have to work 9 to 5. We didn't have to wear suits, you know. So that's what, you know, it was all about. And to be able to play music and pay your bills and buy your car by making music is freedom. I mean, it's the ultimate freedom.